nerve cord or around here anything without bones, probably? Any animal without bones? That's probably not quite right, but close. Mollusks, snails and slugs, scorpions, ticks, fly. Okay, so those are all non-insects. They have 8 legs or no legs. But then insects have 6 legs and usually wings. So flies, beetles, wasps, ants, bees, dragonflies, moths, butterflies. You kind of get the idea.
Somewhere while I read you at 700 species of bees?
I'll get to that. So just to give you an idea of the diversity, we have about 70 species of butterflies known, 40 of dragonflies and damselflies. We know of 250 aquatic invertebrates, and there's probably twice that many. 400 bee species, with probably more on the way. 450 moth species, and that's probably only half. I still have a lot of work to do on those. So just to give you an idea of the diversity of some of our bees, this is the honeybee. This is what most people think of as a bee. They look like that. They live in hives. They make honey. That's not what most bees are like. Most bees are solitary. They don't make honey. They lay a few eggs and provision for those young each year, but they don't live together in hives. Some live in colonies, like one here, one here, one here, one here in the mud, something like that. But not living in a colony of basically your sisters doing all the work. So just, again, to give you an idea of some of the diversity, here's a little tiny bee, smaller than a manzanita flower. And there's a bumblebee, 2 or 3 times the size of a manzanita flower. This one's also quite large. Carpenter bee, little tiny fuzzy orange one. This one's kind of a dull metallic dark green. Then we also have bright metallic green ones. Anyway, lots and lots of bees. Not a whole lot known about them. A little bit of work has been done on the pollination, but not much. We had a grad student for the last 2 years working on them, so she's going through all her specimens and data now. And like I said, we added at least one species that we know of to the list, and probably some more. Butterflies. This is a butterfly walk. I do one butterfly walk, one butterfly evening program, and a butterfly count every year, usually the first weekend in June. You all are welcome to join in on that. Give you some idea of the diversity of butterflies. Sonoran blues are kind of a rare butterfly. They need Dudleya or live forever. It's a sort of succulent, kind of spiny plant that grows on rock faces. You can see it balconies, cliffs, and all around in the high peaks by the reservoir. And that's where you can find these butterflies. And they're probably flying any day right now that gets over 60 or 65 degrees. I bet they flew last weekend, but I didn't make it out to see. And that's a kind of a specialty. There aren't that many places where they're found. Sonoran blue, it's called. Ackman blue, real common. Skippers, pretty small and usually brownish, orangish. Common buckeye. Again, I'm just sort of exposing you to the names, showing you what they look like, not expecting you to remember anything. Brown elfin, that one's nectaring on the lupin flower. Monarch, everybody's favorite butterfly. They don't overwinter here, but they do fly through in the spring when they leave the coastal overwintering places, and then in the fall when they come back to the coastal places. And then a few are probably here year-round. We do have milkweed here, which is what the caterpillars eat. Smallest butterfly in North America, western pygmy blue, is rare here, but we do have it. State butterfly, California dogface. They don't breed here, but they fly through occasionally. And I think, this is a northern white skipper, and I threw this one in just to mention that that butterfly wouldn't be here if there weren't fire. Its caterpillars only eat Indian Valley bush mallow, which only grows after a fire. So that's an egg of that butterfly on the plant. And if we didn't have fire, we wouldn't have the butterfly. Don't have to have a fire every year. those plants persist for decades, but if we didn't have a fire every few decades, the butterfly would go away. Moths. So yeah, for every species of butterfly in a place in this part of the state, there are 15 to 20 species of moth. Some are fairly large, others are just tiny. But again, just to give you an idea of the diversity, it's a tiger moth. They're poisonous and usually brightly colored, warning coloration. That's a type of sphinx moth. Some really blend in well with lichen. I think that one looks exactly like lichen. Or with green leaves, or with dead leaves, or with sticks or twigs, or I don't know what that is. This is one of our largest moths. The wingspan's about like that, and she's laid some eggs on the twig above there. That's a silk moth called a Ceanothus silk moth. This is a tiny, tiny little moth, like gnat-sized. Some of the smaller moths often have sculpturing on the wings that you can't even see with the naked eye, really. And shiny, reflective markings and things. This one's called the yarn moth. Here's a face shot of it.
So cute.
We even have wingless moths. Some female moths are wingless. The males are the ones that do the dispersal. The female emerges from her cocoon, maybe walks a short distance to lay eggs on the leaves, maybe like 5 feet. But yeah, wingless moths. What I showed previously were mostly nocturnal moths. We have some day-flying moths, not very many, and they're often brightly colored. This one lays its eggs on owl clover, which is exactly that color, so she'll really blend in with owl clover if she's sitting on it. These are related to that one that Gavin showed earlier with the long antennae. It's another species of that. They're called longhorn moths or fairy moths. There's another one. See, some of them do come out during the day and nectar on flowers. Big ones, little ones. Oh, there's the nuclear moth, like that shot earlier. These are mud puddling. They're drinking water. This is at the reservoir. And this one's mud puddling, getting water from mud. Yeah, that's a moth. Flies during the day. This one mimics a bumblebee. Bumblebees sting. So if you're a harmless moth, it's probably to your advantage to look like something that stings. So they hover at flowers and look a lot like bumblebees. It's a sphinx moth. So I did an inventory of moths. Only, like I said, didn't even get halfway to probably our total. But I put out light traps that basically attracted moths, and then they fell into a bucket and died. This was a particularly productive night, but that's from one bucket. So it was a lot of work. Now I'm just sorting out the various moths to make sure I get at least one of each species that I got that night.
Paul, these piles that are on this table, are those piles of insects?
Those are moths. Yeah, there are some non-moths. Look, these are crane flies, and these are probably not moths. But these are all kind of sorted. This is one or two species who just happen to be having a good flight. But yeah, they're kind of sorted. I'm going through them, but yeah. I don't really like using that method because it kills a lot of things unnecessarily. But when you're first starting out and you've got nothing, it's kind of the best way to start. In the future, I'll probably mostly put up a sheet where I can stand at the sheet and look at what comes in and just pick the few new things that come in. This is a sphinx moth that is probably a new species to science. Its closest relative around here is down near Bakersfield, and it's a federally threatened species. And it's found from Pinnacles down to San Luis Obispo County. And it's one that I've done some research on. And it'll probably be flying within the next few weeks. Okay, aquatic stuff real quickly. We did a little bit of aquatic inventory work, basically dip netting, turning over rocks and seeing what we could find, just to give you an idea of some of the things. We have toe biters. There are leeches in the reservoir, which sometimes people will tell visitors to get them not to swim there. the truth is the leeches in the reservoir feed on invertebrates. They don't feed on vertebrates. Sometimes they'll stick on you, but they don't really feed on you. But I would not want to run into one of these. They eat frogs and tadpoles and other insects, and they have a piercing mouth part that injects saliva, dissolves it, and then they drink it back out. And they'll do that. They'll bite you too and inject their saliva in there, and you get a nasty wound. And it's supposed to hurt. I've never been bitten.
So giant water bugs, another common name for them? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, those are in the reservoir. You can tell people that if you want. Dragonflies and damselflies, they have the immature stages are aquatic, and then the adult stages are terrestrial and fly around. That's the shed exoskeleton of a dragonfly nymph that came out of the reservoir. And here's flame skimmer at the reservoir. It has just expanded its wings. It's still real pale. They're bright red when they're mature, and just spreading out its wings, and it's about to take flight. You can find them if you look kind of around the dam, just on the other side of the dam in the summertime. You can often find them. They've crawled out of the water, across the pathway, up onto the rocks, and they'll be emerging there. Really cool thing to show visitors if you feel like they won't mess with it. Dragonflies at the reservoir are just great for talking about behavior. People love them. They're really drawn to them, and it gives you a chance to talk about lots of different behavior. There's courtship going on. This female is laying eggs, and the way that sort of grayish mass to the right of her, that's a mat of eggs laid by multiple females. So what she does, she gets an egg ready on the tip of her abdomen, and then she dips down and splashes some water with the egg up onto that mat or wrap. And you can sit and watch her for a few minutes as she does that. And often there will be a male above her guarding her, because he was the last one to mate with her, and he wants to make sure another male doesn't, because the last male to mate with the female fertilizes the eggs. So you'll often see males guarding females. In this case, the male is above, the female's below. She's inserting eggs into the stem, and it's impossible for another male to mate with her at this point, because they're together like that. That's the female below. She's laying eggs, and again, he's ensuring his paternity. There's a solo female, possibly the same species, laying eggs. This female is completely submerged, except for her wings, as she's laying eggs. A little bit of predation. There's a damselfly eating a little moth, eating a water strider. There's a dragonfly eating a damselfly. And there's a robber fly eating a damselfly, so sometimes the tables are turned. We have the largest dragonfly in North America here at Pinnacles, up at the reservoir. It's called the giant darner. The males often fly with that arched abdomen, so if you see that, they're about this long. It's the second largest in the world and largest in North America. Giant darner? Darner is the name for this group of sort of blue, black, and green dragonflies.
That's like 6 inches?
Maybe a little less. Yeah, I might be exaggerating, but yeah, pretty good size. And there are some dragonflies that use ponds and some that use streams. So this is a really cool one that you can see in Bear Gulch and in the campground in South Wilderness, called the grapple tail. It looks kind of like it has a grappling hook on the tail. Sometimes I forget the names from year to year. White-belted ringtail. They have really colorful names. Common whitetail. Pacific spiketail. The female of that lays eggs kind of like a sewing machine in shallow, sandy stream bottoms. And so they just dip, dip, dip. You can see them right by the amphitheater is a good place. In the campground, if there's that little bridge, sometimes you'll see them there, or in the South Wilderness. Common pond hawk. American ruby spot. Here's a close-up. See there's ruby on the wings and purplish on the thorax. They'll be along the streams. There's one with a spider web. And we just had Valentine's Day, so I'll end with a heart with Cupid's arrow. Those are desert firetails, they're called. That's it. So people want Gavin that. But break before Naomi. I could talk about pig fence real quick.
You could talk about pig fence. Dan also said he'd come in and see us on one of our Fridays after.
Okay.
If that'll work better.
That's fine.
If people have questions for Paul or Gavin, if you need to use the restroom, consider this your time. You've got about